just pause this. So guys, just give me a shout out if you can hear me. It looks like my microphone is working and I can see you guys. Nadine, Mary, Isabel, Nikki, thanks for joining. So yeah, awesome. So drop me a line, where are you coming from? Where in the world are you? Perth, Western Australia, fantastic. This is awesome. Okay, so I'm just gonna mute. No, I can't mute. Isabel and Nadine, can you guys see if you can mute your mic? Just sometimes there's can be a little bit of background noise coming through. You just see that you've got your video off, but the mic is not muted. Hey, Mary from Melbourne. How is the weather in Melbourne? Is it cold yet? It's cold in New Zealand, let me tell you. I've got the central heating on tonight because we had snow on the hills yesterday, so that's a little chilly. Now, I'm just going to wait another 6 minutes before we get started. For those that you have joined, I would love for you to pop in your comments box where you're at in your plant-based journey. Are you a beginner? Yeah, cloudy and cooling down. Good. I don't feel so bad about being stuck here then. Yeah, tell me where you're at in your plant-based journey. Are you a beginner? Pop beginner in the chat box. If you are a intermediate, pop that in the chat box. Or if you're a plant-based pro, then type pro for me in the chat box. Okay, beginner, fantastic. I love having newbies join. It's so awesome because it also helps me share and also curate the content of what we talk about tonight based on your level of experience. Yeah, awesome. Try to get the kids to eat it too. Yeah, tell me, what are the kids? Hi, hubby. What are the kids fussy about? Like, do they love certain types of veggies and not others? I mean, I know what the general consensus is that a lot of people, the way we get around a lot of like getting the kids to eat the veggies is to disguise it into like a sauce, so everything gets blended up. So things like a bolognese sauce has hidden veggies in there, so things like zucchini and pumpkin can get whizzed up into the bolognese sauce. So that's a nice little trick. And then of course the kale chips that we're doing tonight are a great one to get the kids into as well. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and this is what I did when I first started doing this type of food, was with my ex-partner and his son. Was this is the deal, this is the trade-off. We are going to do this type of food. You can still have your barbecued chicken or your steak or whatever it is on the side. And you know, that way you don't feel like you're missing out, and you're not sort of, you know, if you're scared that you're not going to feel full after eating, then you've still got that meat to have on the side. Or even just introducing one key component of the meal being plant-based, and then you can still do a little bit of what you fancy as well. So there's a bit of a fusion going on between raw and cooked, and also what you're used to. So there's no real you know, dogma about this is how it's going to be from now on. You can literally just kind of ease in gently and still get to try different ways of eating, but still having what you love on the plate. Yeah, so that's perfect. That's a great way to do it. And it does take a while. Like, you know, I think, you know, you've got to keep trying different dishes and different recipes, but once you get there, a couple of recipes that everybody loves, then that's a nice way to segue into new recipes to try. For me, what worked with my partner, ex-partner, and his son was spag bowls. So we did spaghetti and meatballs, and that worked really well. And then things like any type of meaty style plant-based dish. So what's really cool to do is to start working with. Do you guys have the Plant Based Mojo Manual ebook? This is, yeah, perfect. So the spaghetti and meatballs recipe in there, try it. Because that's awesome, and that's one of the ones I got the ex and his son onto eating. And any kind of meaty style dishes, lots of sun-dried tomatoes and mushrooms really help to add a bit of heaviness to the dish. So guys, I'm just welcoming our newbies that have just joined. So Nicole, I think, a few Nadines. Wow, we've got a few Nadines in the house tonight. Mary, thanks for joining. Please, for those of you that have just joined, pop a little comments in the box below. You'll see there's a little chat icon there. You can just share with me where you're dialing in from tonight. Love to know where everyone's coming from. And also, if you're a beginner for plant-based, please type beginner. Or if you're an intermediate, please type intermediate. Or if you're a pro, please let me know that you're a pro. And we hide lots of veggies in the sauces, and we just make most from scratch. Perfect. And is that working? Hiding veggies in the sauce? That always works for me. Yes. I love it. And I'm also finding if I combine a favorite dish of theirs with something that's veggie based, and then we combine them together, and I get the girls to eat, this is my nieces I'm talking about now, to learn how to combine those foods together on the fork, and not, you know how kids sometimes like to have everything separate. So if they're starting to just, you know, do a little bit of both on the fork as well, they seem to be able to tolerate that a little bit more as well. But Willow's 8, and she's really has a really bad sweet tooth, and to get her to eat vegetable is amazing. It's incredible. Okay guys, so we are nearly at starting time now. Who's actually doing the cooking with me tonight? Who's watching? Hands up who's watching. And just, yeah, look and learn. Awesome. Have you guys got your Plant Based Mojo Manual ebook printed out? You don't have that? So for anyone that doesn't have this gorgeous little number here, please email me at Amanda@the Raw Food Kitchen. I'm going to put that email address in the chat box, so you can email me at that address, and I will email it to you, because in that ebook is the recipes that we're doing tonight, plus the ones that I did last week, which was the tropical toasted muesli with the cashew yogurt. So in that ebook, you're going to get all of those recipes plus some. There's the spag bowl with the meatballs that I just talked about, and the cacao pudding. Yeah, say hey Nicole. Yay, beginners. I love newbies joining me. This is awesome. So yeah, email me. I will email this to you tomorrow, so you have the recipe. For those of you that have this, if you've got it printed out, that would be great, because we are going to probably do a few little different things to the recipe, which is what I love to do when we play with food, is to add little things in, or just sometimes freestyle it a little bit. I like to make uncooking fun, plant-based food fun, and not so rigid when it comes to measuring and having to be strict about quantities. It's like, yeah, it's just really about feeling the food and feeling the flavors and making it taste awesome. For me, I don't care about quantities as long as it tastes good, right? Are we in? Are we in for good? Good flavors? Yeah, awesome. Okay, guys, so on the little Plant Based Mojo Manual ebook, we're going to do the mayo, the homemade mayo first, which is page 24 of your ebook. Now, and this is kind of cool. Like, if you guys are starting to do plant-based, a little tip is, say you wanted to do a couple of recipes, is, hey, Alison, thanks for joining. Is what I like to do is I look at both recipes, and I can see, based on the ingredients, that this is all about saving washing up time. So I look at the ingredients and go, okay, the homemade mayo doesn't have a lot of color in there, so I can literally make this first, not wash the blender jug, and then go straight into making the tahini kale chips. Does that make sense? Because a little bit of, you know, white cashew in with the tahini mix is not going to ruin the dish. So this just saves them a washing up step. So that's a nice little kind of tip, is just to plan ahead a little bit so you're not having to constantly wash things. Does that make sense? Are we down with that? I'm down with that. All right, guys. So what I want to do is obviously do the homemade mayo first. So, and the thing I love about doing blender recipes is obviously it's all one piece of equipment going in. There's not like tons of little different bits and bobs that I have to work with. So it's all going in the blender. So what I've got is 1 cup of raw cashews. Now, these have just been soaked for 20 minutes. You don't want to over soak these because they do tend to go quite moldy very quickly. So 20 minutes is enough. And the reason we soak them for 20 minutes is so that they can actually just get a little bit soft. It's really no other reason. They don't need to have the enzyme inhibitor removed like we do with other nuts and seeds, because it's a white nut. It's already been processed to some extent. So we've just soaked to soften, and we've got a cup going in now. And then I want to add in my coconut sugar. So organic coconut sugar is awesome because this is like your sugar substitute. It's much more low GI and it's less processed, and therefore a little bit better for you, so less refined. And you can see here, I'm just using a normal spoon. I don't have a measuring spoon. I'm just going in, and by eye, I'm just adding that into the blender jug. Now, always, always, always pinch of salt with everything. This salt brings out the flavor of the sweet and the oils and any of those aromatics that you're going to be working with. So less is more, of course. When you're adding this in, you just want to add a little bit to start, because I find like sometimes if you over salt, it's really hard to get it out. So pinch of salt going in, and then we have our lemons. Now, this acidity is really important. When you're making a mayo, you want to be thinking about the key components of getting the flavors right with any type of sauce or mayo. It's that fat, and it's the sweet, and it's the salt, and it's the sour. So if we can get that right, get that nice balance, then you are winning. Okay, so I'm just going to use this because this is a little tough. I don't think lemons are actually local at the moment in New Zealand, so they're not that great to work with. And I also like to have apple cider vinegar. Does anyone use apple cider vinegar at home? Does anyone have apple cider vinegar? Yes, give me a wave if you do. Beautiful. So if you're really struggling to get that acidity with the lemon, then you can try a splash of apple cider vinegar. That's a nice little tip. This is always a little backup for me to use if I'm finding the lemon is not cutting it. Okay, so now that we've got that in, we want to add our extra virgin olive oil, about 1/4 cup. So I'm just going to do this by eye. The thing is, obviously with mayo and anything kind of in general, when I'm working with liquids with plant-based foods, is less is more. So I'm always just putting a little bit less than what the recipe says. I blend it and then I see. And if it needs more, then I add more. So it's a little bit of, you know, just using your eye to get to where you want it to be in terms of the thickness, right? It's going to be a mayo. We don't want it to look like a runny milk. Okay, so a little bit of apple cider vinegar in here. So you guys know always to get the apple cider vinegar that says with the mother. Thumbs up. We know why, right? It's got all the beautiful enzymatic, probiotic rich magic ingredients in there. It has the mother in it. So a nice little splash. I might add more later. I'm going to freestyle it. And then we've got a little bit of yellow mustard powder going in. So I'm just going to put in about a teaspoon. Just going to check this recipe, olive oil, and then the last but not least, yes, is going to be the water. So yeah, remember how I said less is more, guys? So we're just going to add in, that'll be plenty. Now you can see, can you see the blender jug? It's just up to the level of the cashew nuts. So I think let's just pop that on the base and give it a little whiz and see what happens. Is everybody deaf? I'm deaf now. That is so loud. I think my poor Vitamix, I've had it for like maybe 10 years now. There's a bearing that's about to go on it, and it's sounding like it's really protecting that speed. So, right. So this is looking beautiful. So I don't know if you can see, guys. You guys can see that consistency. Does that look like it kind of looks nice and smooth? It's got a little bit of gloss to it. And if you kind of pick it up with a spoon, you can see it kind of holds its own. It looks, you know, it's going to spread nicely on a sandwich or when you put it into a salad dressing. The key with the cashews, right, is it can get a little grainy. So you want to just run it around your thumb and finger, and I can feel they're still grainy. So I just want to blend it a little bit more so we can get that graininess out. And taste, always taste. Oh my God, by the way, it's amazing. I wish you could taste this. It's so good. For me, that little hit of the mustard powder is just a nice little kick. I mean, you don't have to put the mustard powder in. Of course, if you wanted to, you could add a bit of garlic in there as a garlic aioli or something like that. But I like adding that yellow mustard in there as well for the color. It just gives it a bit of pop. So I'm just going to add, you may have noticed when I was blending that you could hear the blender was struggling a little bit. And that means it's a little too thick. It's struggling. So I'm just going to add a splash of water in now. Not too much. And let's just blend a little bit longer. I want to get rid of that graininess. Okay, I can tell by looking at that, it's nice and glossy. So that generally means that, and it's super smooth. So this is a tip for you guys too, when you're working with cashews for cheesecakes, is you want it to be smooth. You don't want that graininess. I don't even need to touch that now to see that it's good. So now that that's good, we're going to pop that in a jar. If you've got mason jars left over at home, perfect for this. If you guys have got questions, please pop them in the comments, because I am keeping an eye on that all the time so that I can help answer any questions you've got about that. You can see this is probably going to make about a 500 gram jar, just a little bit under. So, I mean, when you look at like how cheap this is to make, right? It's literally just, the cashews cost me, I think, about $4. And all the other ingredients, most of us have those in the pantry, right? So they are already good to go. So see how I'm not going to wash this. I'm just going to leave it like that to do the next recipe. It's not going to affect the next recipe. Okay, so this baby is going to go in the fridge. Here we go, guys. Homemade mayo. Voila. Blessed with love and all your attention. So you guys contributed to making that. Thank you. How long will it last in the fridge? So because, you know, when you think about what we've put in here, we've got fat, which is a preservative. We've got acid, which is a preservative. We've got salt in here, which is a preservative. So this is going to last in the fridge for a good couple of weeks, right? Did you guys make it? Can you show me your masterpiece? Yay! Oh my God, this is so awesome. I'm like, cheers to you. I love it. This sounds so awesome. Yeah, and it'll thicken up in the fridge too, so you'll get a nice thick spread. Now, if you wanted to get really crafty with this, you could also ferment it and have a fermented mayo, right? Which is really cool because you get that beautiful tang. If you wanted to ferment this, all you need to do is add a couple of probiotic capsules, just to break them open, give it a good stir, and then leave it on the bench for 48 hours. And you'll have, actually, no, probably not that long. I would say 24 hours. You'll see lots of bubbles forming in here. That means it's ready. Give it another good stir and then pop it back in the fridge. And then you've got not only a beautiful homemade mayo, which is healthy, right? But you're getting the added benefits of the probiotics, the good bacteria that are going to be, you know, helping keeping your gut healthy, helping keeping your immune system up. And again, another great way to sneak all that stuff into the kids' diet, because you know how hard it is to get them to take a tablet. This is another sneaky way of getting in some goodness. So goodness in a jar. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in the fridge. How easy was that? That was just way too easy. That took 5 minutes. Okay. So fridge, yeah, a couple of weeks. If you ferment it, yeah, so yeah, good question, Nicole. So if you want to ferment it, I would recommend, depending on where you are in the world, like if you're in a cold climate, like maybe Melbourne, you'd need a good 24 hours. If you're in Cairns or somewhere semi-tropical, maybe 8 hours. But you'll know when you've got those bubbles forming that you're getting a good ferment. And then once that's fermented, you're literally, you've got something that's going to last in the fridge for a long, long time. Like I'm talking months, because fermentation was actually a great way to preserve food back in the olden days, right? Before we had, you know, the refrigerator. So this is something that, you know, if you wanted to extend the shelf life of food, and maybe you don't use that mayo after a week, then just chuck those probiotic capsules in there and start fermenting, and then you're prolonging the shelf life and you can use it forever. And then you've got a really beautiful, healthy elixir for your gut and your immune system and your general feeling of, you know, health and wellness. Yeah, welcome guys. Yeah, you can do it with my cashew sour cream. Yeah, you could definitely do it. You can do it with anything. Hey Trixie, so good to see you. And yes, we're recording this one, so forgot to hit the record button on the last one, so sorry about that. So guys, are you ready for kale chips? Yeah, me too. This is one of my favorites to make. And if you go to page 28 on the Plant Based Mojo Manual ebook, the kale chips there is a baked recipe. But does anyone have a dehydrator? Hands up, anyone that's got a dehydrator. Yes. Oh my God, that's so good to see. So proud of you guys. So if you have a dehydrator, then you might want to make a note if you wanted to put this in the dehydrator, which, you know, means you're technically going to get a raw recipe, which is a little bit healthier because you're preserving all those precious enzymes. You would want to probably dehydrate at about 115 or 44 degrees for 12 hours maybe. What I like to do is do it during the day. Hey Trixie, good to see you, darling. Is do it during the day. So yeah, you can keep an eye on it. So I like to check it. So if I'm dehydrating, when the top's dry, then I know that I can flip the tray and get the bottoms starting to dry off. And it generally doesn't take that long. It should be anywhere between 12 to 18 hours and flipping halfway through that drying time. Right, so all I've done is I've just got a bunch of kale. This is the curly kale. It's not my favorite. I actually prefer the Tuscan kale. Does anyone know what the Tuscan kale looks like? It's that flat, long leaf. Yeah, that's my favorite. But anyway, we couldn't get that, so we're using this. And what's kind of cool is, like, with the curly kale, when you start to pull off the kale from the stalk, you get these cool little bite-sized pieces most of the time that you can just kind of pull off like that. So that's a really good size for a kale chip. So you just keep pulling them off as you're going down and creating a little kale chip. If you're getting, you're seeing any kind of stalks or pieces that are a little bit too big, then you can just break them in half. Because, you know, for me, when I'm making food, I'm always thinking about the end user experience. I always want to make sure that, you know, you're not trying to stuff a massive kale leaf into your mouth. You want it to taste kind of nice. You want the experience of eating to be enjoyable and not too messy. So yeah, you want those nice bite-sized pieces to go in. I'm just going to keep doing that while this is the last leaf. And if you get the Tuscan kale, it's really fun because you can literally just kind of grab the stalk and just bleed the leaves off the stalk quite easily and then just tear them up. But this is also fun to work with too. So now that we've got that in there, now you may notice again, here's my blender jug. but I'm not going to wash it because this really is just going to add to that tahini flavor. And there's not enough in here really to affect it too much. So what I want to do is just go through the recipe. Okay, so we've got tahini here. This is a whole stone ground. It hasn't been dehulled, so it's a little bit darker. Now, I quite like both different versions of tahini. So you can just choose whatever you like. It doesn't need to be, you know, whatever's healthiest. It's really personal preference. And to be honest, there's not much of a difference. I find that this is probably a little bit more bitter. So if you want more bitter, the unhulled is the best. Now we're putting in about 3/4 of a cup. Now you're probably gonna need rubber gloves for this or something. I don't have any, so this is gonna get really messy. Yeah, so what did Nicole say? You have the curly kale in your garden? I'm so jealous. I'm coming to your house. Yeah, if you have, I think kale's relatively easy to grow. And silver beet here in New Zealand is a huge garden favorite amongst everybody here. And that's a really cool tip for you guys too. If you don't have kale, you can use silver beet or any kind of like leafy green, like, yeah, like the Swiss chard, which is, you know, or the collards, or even some of that sort of water spinach that you can get from the bok choy or anything like that you can get from the Chinese grocer. They're always fun to play with as well when you're making something like kale chips. But yeah, the kale chips definitely, I think the kale works best because it is a little bit tougher. I think kale's a great one to get into your diet every day too, because you know it's really, really potent in terms of keeping your immune system healthy. It's really high in indole 3-carbinol, which is a master detoxifier in the body. So it really helps support that immune system to fight off pathogens and keep you, keep you healthy and strong. And of course, anything green is chlorophyll, right? So chlorophyll is oxygen for our blood. So leafy greens and getting your greens in every day is like as mandatory as brushing your teeth. Yeah, so if you can think about ways of getting greens in, like I like to always like sneak in greens in my smoothies. So I'm always adding in spinach and things like coriander or fresh mint. Oh, you're growing Tuscan and silver beet. I'm so jealous. You know, what's been interesting with this COVID-19 experience is really making me think about how we need to be more sufficient in terms of how we look after our bodies and how we get food, right? So I'm like convincing my mum to churn up some of her gardens, her flower beds, and turning it into a veggie garden. So that's going to be what we're doing. Tell me something. Is there anything that you guys have decided about what's shifted for you and how you want to, I don't know, be more in control of what's happening in the world, in your backyard or in your life due to the COVID experience? Like, is there anything that you've kind of gone, yeah, I'm definitely going to go start growing my own veggies, or it's spurred me on to doing more plant-based? If there's one key takeout, share with me in the comments what that is. So I've just added the lemon in, I've added the sesame oil, of course, pinch of salt, always, pink Himalayan salt, without a doubt. Get rid of that white table salt. It's pretty nasty stuff. Okay, so here is where I'm going to go off piste a little bit on the recipe. I have been feeling like tonight that I wanted to add some cumin because it's kind of got that nice association with the tahini. I wanted to kind of, yeah, definitely more plant-based. Yeah, nice one, Trixie. Yeah, for me as well. Really makes me realize how important health is, and we can't take it for granted, and we really do need to take a bit more ownership of how we look after ourselves. You know, I feel like handing over our health to someone else is basically not taking responsibility. So learning how to do all this stuff, like the little snacks and the homemade mayo, is just a beautiful way to start to build on that and taking more control and taking back ownership of our health and our destiny as well. Yeah, learning how to preserve, growing more veggies and herbs. Yeah, I like to go more plant-based. Yeah, and it's perfect, right? Because you've got a veggie garden, and you know this is a great way to make beautiful food with the stuff that you're growing in your backyard. Okay, so my off-piste ingredients are gonna be a teaspoon of paprika and a teaspoon of cumin. That I'm going to throw in. Now I'm saying a teaspoon, but it's probably more like a tablespoon. So yeah, who's been 100%? Trixie, you've been vegan for 6 weeks now. You feel amazing. Well done, girlfriend. I'm so proud of you. That's awesome. I've been doing liver cleanses. That's been my thing for the last couple of weeks, and I've been feeling amazing. So yeah, if you guys have been following me on Instagram, you may have noticed me sharing a few little insights around the liver cleanse protocol and how that works. Because it is super, super effective and a great way, a great cleanse for anyone to do. You don't have to be, you know, a pro or, you know what you're doing or have some sort of understanding of plant-based. Anyone can do this cleanse. There's more details on my Instagram account if you want to find out about that. Right, last ingredient, nutritional yeast. Hands up who has this. How good is it? I love it. This is my version of cheese. It's so much better than that dairy-ridden acidic stuff. So lots of B vitamins, deactivated yeast, doesn't affect you if you have candida. Great substitute if you want to have that cheesy flavor in there, but you don't want to add cheese because we know cheese is not so good for us. This is a great one to get. You can get it in your health food store or your supermarket. Now I'm just again going freestyle, and I'm saying a couple of tablespoons. So you could even go up to 1/4 cup here if you wanted. Did I add the apple cider vinegar in? No, but I'm going to, because the lemon, as you may have noticed, they're imported right now and they're not so good in New Zealand. So I know I'm not going to get that acidity. So I'm going to add about 1/4 cup in. And of course our water to help blend. So let me just give this a little whiz up and see how it looks. You may have heard like that blender just went right. So that means it's not blending. It's struggling. The mix is too thick. It's going to need a little bit more water. I'm just going to pour that in. Okay, that's looking better. A little taste test. Now, you may have noticed, I mean, I would love to put a little bit of sweet in here, but I don't have, yeah, so we could put coconut sugar in, but it can sometimes stay a little grainy. I'm really liking that. It's quite intense. Now, the trick for this, right, guys, when you're making it, you want this flavor to be intense, because when it goes into the kale is going to really absorb all that flavor. So you want to make that like really sharp, like really salty, really acidic. There's all the flavors are coming through, but they're intense. So you just want to keep that in mind, so that when you might just take some of this out actually and do this in batches. Yeah, so when you're working with this, and by the time it goes on the kale, it still has some of that flavor and that intensity, because otherwise this stuff is just going to suck all that flavor up. I'm going to pour that in. Yeah, think about different flavors that you'd like. There's, you know, I like to do Thai curry style flavors, so we could be putting in things like kaffir lime leaf and ginger and chili and coriander and blending that up. Or you could be doing some sort of Italian flavor with lots of Italian herbs and it's a tomato-based sauce kind of instead, to get that gorgeous kind of yeah, intensity of the tomato coming through. But it's really up to you. There's no hard and fast rules. And I think the thing that I encourage you guys to do is just get really, like, just get playful in the kitchen. Just get fun, like make it fun and go crazy. And sometimes, like, you know, you could be playing around with like a recipe and put something completely random in there and it tastes like amazing. And you've like just created a whole new recipe. So this is what I encourage you guys to try and do in the kitchen, is to not be afraid to play with the recipe and the different ingredients. Yeah, and just come up with something fun. And this is the one that you want to get the kids to do. You want to get their hands in there. They love getting in there and mushing stuff up. And I also find when kids actually get involved in making the food, they seem to be more interested in actually eating the food, which is kind of cool. So especially when it comes to the sweet treats. If you guys are actually loving doing these masterclasses with me, I will do one more, and that is to do next week's one. So give me a little wave or a thumbs up if you're keen to do another one. And we'll do a couple of more recipes from the Plant Based Mojo Manual ebook. And I think we might do the chocolate mousse because I love doing sweets. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a fan of doing sweet treats. So yeah, if you want to do another one, give me a shout and I'll schedule one for next week as well. Now you can see here, I'm just massaging this in. Because there's salt in that recipe, you'll notice that the kale is kind of wilting and it's getting a little bit softer. And that's what you want. You want that to really start to get all mushy. Then I can add the rest of this in. This is a whole bunch of kale. This is gonna, well, generally doesn't last very long once we've done kale chips. And they're nice and crispy. I also sometimes like to add a little bit of salt, like halfway through. Who's got the questions? What were the additional ingredients that I added? Okay, so the additional ingredients were probably about 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. And then I had 1 to 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika. And then 1 to 2 teaspoons of cumin. And I had maybe about 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. And I just want to give this a little taste test now to see if I'm still getting that intensity of the flavors or if I can still pick up. It's got the creaminess there. For me, this still needs a bit of, can you guys see this? Beautiful big bowl of goodness. It still needs a little bit of salt. So I'm going to add some salt. And I'm going to add another teaspoon of each of the spices. So the cumin and the paprika is going to go in. I'm just going to give that another stir. Yeah, beautiful. So that's just going to come together now, hopefully with that little bit of extra oomph. But what I'm looking for in this dish before it goes in the oven, yeah, is I want to have a little bit of salty. The acidity and the creamy is coming through, but now I can also taste the cumin and a little bit of that sweet paprika, that smoked paprika, which is perfect. So I'm just going to pop that into a baking tray. This has been lined with a bit of baking paper. I mean, you could throw it straight on. You don't have to line it, but it's my mum's oven. She's so particular about keeping it clean. So we're going to do the right thing. Going to keep mum happy. And just pop that out. You don't want it too jammed up, right? You want each piece to have a bit of an opportunity to really get nice and crispy. So give them a bit of space if you can, which is why I've got 2 trays. And I'll just spread them out like so. Yeah, so you kind of want it to be about, I don't know if you guys can see this. I've got the old laptop on a pile of books. See, look how that's kind of spread out. It's not too jammed up. That is what is going to go in the oven at 180. So I like to check on it because it's an oven. Actually, to be honest with you, I prefer dehydrated because I have more control over it. I can kind of almost set and forget. Nikki, show me your masterpiece, please, before it goes in the oven. Beautiful. I love it. Well done, guys. I'm so proud of you. So pop that in the oven. 180. 10 minutes. I would just check it after 10 minutes because it could It could be a little crispy. It just depends on your oven. Like if you've got a really, some ovens are a little bit, you know, yeah, they run a little cool, or some run a little hot. So just keep checking it. If it's starting to get crispy on the top and still soft on the bottom, then just flip them over by hand so that they can start to get nice and crispy together. And then once they're nice and crispy, they're ready to come out of the oven, and then just let it cool until you are ready to yeah, pop it in a container. And then you can keep it in the pantry. Personally, once it's super dry, I love to keep them in the freezer, because the freezer keeps them crispy. And with kale chips, like you may notice, they go a little sort of soggy after a while. So because the freezer is actually like a dry air and not like fridge is more kind of a wet kind of cold, freezer is dry cold. Yeah, just keep it in an airtight container in the freezer, and they stay nice and crispy that way. But I would say that most of the time you will be just munching away on them, and this will be your new version of popcorn. Yeah, and hopefully, as I said, guys, just keep experimenting with yeah, the different types of ingredients and different flavors, because the kale is the sort of, you know, the sort of neutralness of where you can actually start to add flavor to it with your sauce. Yeah, Nikki, like how long do you reckon they're going to last once they're done? How many kids in the house would eat the kale chips? So guys, yeah, I've got yeah, hopefully tonight. Yeah, it'd be awesome to sit down, watch a movie, and share the kale chips together. Now, who's got any questions? Like this is, you know, if you've got any burning questions about plant-based, I'm opening up the floor for 5 minutes. While while we're doing that, I want to share with you guys that I am going to be launching an online program called Everyday Healthy very soon. It's 8 weeks online, and it's taking you through the plant-based journey from a beginner through to getting comfortable and confident making recipes every week. So each week we only do 2 hero recipes together. Of course, each week you do get a full meal plan and a whole bunch of awesome recipes, but we do just work on mastering 2 hero recipes a week together. So the first week is breakfast, then we go into lunches, then we go into dinners, and then we do fermented foods. And each week we're slowly building our mindset and our detox protocols together, so that each week we're building on our knowledge and our confidence and really kind of getting into embodying plant-based living, so that by the end of week 7 and 8, we actually go into fasting for a week together, as well as doing 100% raw vegan at the end of the week. So it is quite a special online program. It's 8 weeks, and you know, it's something that I take you through as a sort of health coach for 8 weeks. We do it together. We do live cooking classes once a week like this. And I'm really excited to be launching that at the end of April. And I've got a really special offer for you guys. It's 60% off right now. It's normally around $14.90, but it's a special price, I think, of like $597, which is like a 4 or 5 payments of $149. And it's just for you guys, a special 60% off right now. What I will do is I'll just pop a little link in here, and if you wanted to book a call with me and find out a little bit more about that and grab that special offer and join me on the 8-week online program, which is embodying healthy every day, then jump on the call and we can have a bit more of a chat about what your needs are and how maybe the course can work for you if it's right for you. And what was the question about the kale chips? It's been a bit hit and miss. How do you stop burning on the bottom or soggy? Yeah, so I find like if your oven's doing that, then go low and go slow. So treat it more like it as if it's a dehydrator, and just do a much lower temp, like maybe even like 100 degrees to start, and keep the oven door slightly open. So it's acting more like a dehydrator and it's just slowly drying out. And then once the tops are crispy, you can turn them over, and that'll stop you from getting the burning. And if you're finding that they're getting too crispy but other parts are too soggy, then you just turn that temp down a little bit more, and then you can keep going with it until it's kind of where you want it to be. But I have to say, like, I personally find working with, you know, recipes where I want to do, like, say for example, I want to dehydrate my nuts and seeds, and they are, I don't have a dehydrator and I'm using the oven. The oven can be quite hit and miss because you have to use a low temp. You can't really leave an oven unattended like you can a dehydrator. Like, for example, I had a girlfriend who tried to do the muesli that is normally a dehydrated recipe, and she did it in her oven. Even though it was really low, she did leave it going overnight, and it was almost a kitchen fire the next day. So you just don't know. Your oven is, you know, they're very different. All of them are very different. So if you're going to do it that way, I recommend just doing it during the day while you're at home so you can keep an eye on it. Trixie's asking how long and what temp in the dehydrator. So if you're going to do those in the dehydrator, I would say 44 degrees. Or 115 Fahrenheit, and that's going to probably, I would say, check after 6 hours, and then if it's crispy on the top, you can flip the tray, pull the Paraflex sheet off, get the bottoms crispy, and then just keep going until they're dry. But it really shouldn't take too long. Just depending on, though, if it's quite soggy, it might need a bit more drying time. But the trick with the dehydrated ones is once you get them done and they're nice and crispy, get them into a Ziploc bag in the freezer straight away, because they'll stay crispy that way. If they go in the fridge or in the pantry, they'll just go all soggy. And we don't do soggy kale chips. We love the crunch. So yeah, just keep experimenting with that. It's also fun to, you know, throw in things like, you can just, for extra crunch, you can sort of mix chopped up nuts and seeds or sesame seeds into that mix as well, which is also fun to play with. Again, I also like to season a little bit more as it's going, just for a little bit of extra oomph during that process as well. So guys, there we have it. 2 awesome snacks and a homemade mayo and a kale chips, and you're already like rocking plant-based life way more than the average Joe out there. So I'm super proud of you guys. Thanks for joining. Lovely to see your beautiful faces. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about Everyday Healthies, jump on that link and we can have a quick chat. Branded dehydrator, yes, Vic. I recommend the Excalibur. So if you jump on YouTube, Google me, Raw Food Kitchen, Excalibur dehydrator, there will be a little bit of a video about the dehydrators available and why I love Excalibur on there, and then you can have a listen to that, and it will give you some more ideas about why Excalibur is amazing. Yeah, thanks guys. If you want to check me out on Instagram, then find me, the Raw Food Kitchen. That's where I'll be, and so good to see you guys. Oh my god, I can't wait to eat those kale chips either. Yeah, and just email me if you really want to do this again. I'm happy to do it. Love connecting with you guys. It's almost as good as the real thing. But thanks to COVID, this is how we're going to do it for a while. Blessings, lots of love. Bye for now. Bye. Thank you.